Good morning. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. This is episode 108, April 30th, 2019. I want to lead off the show and talk about while I think the reasons that Donald Trump is most likely to win the presidential election in 2020. I want to go through some of the promises that he made during the campaign and talk about that. We'll mention a little bit about local news here, recent news with what Donald Trump's doing, a little gaffe by Joe Biden, talk a little bit about Judge Napolitano again and some of the 2020 Democrat candidates, and end with a happiness quote of Dennis Prager. So when I went to the campaign rally in Louisville when Donald Trump was running for president, the biggest promises that he made, and now I looked this up at politifact.com, has his top 5 promises, what they think. Now, is this a conservative website or a leftist website? Well, to let you know, they're like the biggest lie of the year, they said in like 2018 was that the Parkland shooter victims, David Camera Hogg and the other girl, they said that they were lied about and that the lies were told about them. So there you go. So that is what they thought was the biggest lie of 2018. Not the Russian hoax or anything like that. So anyhow, from looking at this website, politifact.com, it looks like this is not a right-wing website. So they say there's 5 reasons, top promises, and this could be right. The number one Donald Trump promise in 2016 was repeal Obamacare. Huge applause line when I was in that Louisville rally with Donald Trump. Build a wall, they say second, and make Mexico pay for it. Yes, he did mention he was going to make Mexico pay for it, and build a wall was second. Third, PolitiFact says was suspend immigration for terror-prone places. And 4, cut taxes for everyone. 5, lower the business rate, tax rate. And so PolitiFact has a Trump-o-meter scorecard on the promises kept, and it's a pie shaped. And then the compromises he's made, promises broken, stalled, and in the works. So actually over 50% is in the works, promises kept, and compromises. Promises broken is just a little wedge, maybe 20% of the pie. And then stalled looks like about a third of the pie. So actually he's done quite well. One interesting thing I noticed about Donald Trump when he did run for president, and I was a little bit disappointed, but I thought he made a good decision. He said, I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. Okay, so now here's the update on that. Democrats say latest Trump budget cuts Medicare, but it's not that simple. Of course, they're going to talk about the rate of rise in Medicare has slowed, and so they'll say that is a cut. Even though the spending has gone up every year, there's been no cut in spending, they'll call that a cut. So Donald Trump has obviously kept this promise. So senior Americans have always, I think this was a reach out that Donald made to seniors. And in the presidential campaign of 2016, in the Republican primary, I noticed many of my senior friends were on board with Donald Trump way before I was. And so I think they liked this about Donald Trump. He was just not going to go there. Yes, his Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, is this dwarfing and growing like a huge beast in the federal budget? Oh, yes, it is. And it's a big problem, but no one seems to care. And the voters don't seem to care. And so Donald Trump was really good with that. And so in this PolitiFact article, they put that as a compromise. Okay, I call that a flat out lie. We would know darn well the Democrats would be screaming high heaven if he cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. Oh my heavens. There'd be a huge outcry. No, not a peep, not a whisper. Build a wall and makes Mexico pay for it. So Donald Trump has fought so hard with the Republicans and Democrats for his wall. Okay, and parts of it are being built. Okay, now he said he was going to build, a great wall on the southern border. Okay, so he has extended the building of the wall, but it's probably not as much as we would want. And this was a huge applause line. And so PolitiFact has that as stalled. Okay, I would disagree. I think there's a compromise at least going on down there. But Americans love how Donald Trump is strong on keeping our border strong. This is a huge victory for Donald Trump. And this is popular with American voters. Very popular. So there are a few, of course, you're going to have the far left, and they're not going to want any of this stuff. But no, this is very popular. It's a big win for Donald. And so what about suspension of immigration from terror-prone places? The travel ban. Okay, there were judges that fought back against that, held that up. Oh, Donald won. So Donald won. The travel ban's still in place. You don't hear a peep about it. It's still in place. That was popular. Cut taxes for everyone. Okay, he did lower the tax rates. I mean, I was even, some nurses don't even believe that they got a tax cut. No, those middle class people all got a tax cut. Okay, now in this PolitiFact.com, it says that eventually, like 20 years from now, taxes are going to creep back up. Okay, who cares? Okay, so yes. Okay, now cutting taxes for everyone, some people I think there were reports that if you had a lot of deductions with your state, someone like Ben Shapiro said that his taxes may have gone up. That is possible, but I think almost everyone's taxes have gone down. So I think he has supported that campaign promise and lowered the business tax rate. He said he would lower it down to 15%. He lowered it down to like 21% from 35%. Awesome. Okay, PolitiFact says, well, you didn't lower it down to 15%. Oh, give me a break. That was really pretty close. So that's awesome. So even one of my Democrat friends, or one of my friends at work who he watches CNN all the time. He's down on life, and he's always down on Donald Trump. And he said that even Donald Trump has fulfilled his campaign promises. And that is really true. That is really true. Donald Trump is really, and the recent campaign rally that I went to in Charleston, West Virginia, there were signs there, promises kept. So this is awesome. Okay, so Donald Trump has really kept his promises. The other ones about like canceling all funding of sanctuary cities, well, he hasn't been able to pull that off yet. Get Congress to allow health insurance across state lines. That's in the works. Oh, and I think the number one thing I skipped is repeal Obamacare. Okay, John McCain gave us a no vote, which stopped that progression. But in essence, the kingpin, the linchpin of Obamacare was the mandate to force us to pay to buy health insurance. That mandate has been repealed, and so that's the linchpin of Obamacare. That's the house of cards. It looks like the whole constitutionality of Obamacare is in peril because that supposed tax, the power of Congress to tax, was, according to John Roberts, was holding that the constitutionality of Obamacare, forcing Americans to buy something. That was making it constitutionally okay. So even that is in peril. So Donald Trump has tried to get rid of Obamacare. In some regards, we don't have the mandate, so that has helped tremendously. So not a 100% victory with that, but definitely good effort, and it was a Republican that thwarted that progress. So there's an article by Leander Bernstein A strong incumbency could mean a Trump re-election victory in 2020. And this is put out on Sinclair's broadcast group. And she says, it's the economy, stupid, is the widely accepted political maxim that voters will punish the incumbent president who presides over a weak economy and re-elect the one who delivers strong economic growth. The conventional wisdom will put to the test under President Donald Trump. So she talks about his approval ratings are, never really peaked around 45-50%, and that he's got disapproval ratings are high. We're in a very polarized political landscape, and the media just cannot stand Donald Trump. It's tried so hard to get him thrown out of office, and using the FBI, and even the Mueller probe is fascinating. And this Mueller probe is definitely backfired, and it's making Donald Trump look like Teflon now. He is almost unassailable. I mean, what attacks are the Democrats now going to make against him? Most Americans think that the Mueller probe was for political purposes. So I think Donald Trump, with this huge political attack on him, and to have survived it, really makes him look like a victim here, and it really is going to give him an extra bump in the polls. So it's since the mid-20th century, every time an incumbent lost his re-election, it could be attributed to an intervening economic recession. So George Herbert Walker Bush, he lost. He was a one-term president. He lost to Bill Clinton, and there was a recession, and he increased taxes. Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan in 1980. In 1980, there was high inflation and low growth. Gerald Ford lost, even though he wasn't really elected president. He became president from the resignation of Richard Nixon, and he lost to Carter. But there was high employment and economic recession. And so, anyhow, she reports that Trump's odds at an incumbent look good, particularly if the economy continues on track. Since 1900, there have been 19 presidents who ran for re-election, and only 4 have lost. George Herbert Walker Bush, Jimmy Carter, Hubert Hoover, and William Taft. So, anyhow, just from a mathematical position, Donald Trump is in a very good place. Very good place. It was just like before with HRC and Donald Trump. I mean, basically, with everything equal, who was the most likely candidate to win? Well, Donald Trump was the most likely mathematical candidate to win because Barack Obama was a Democrat, and he was a 2-term Democrat. So the odds are in favor of the party that's not in power. And so for the Republicans to win the presidential election, the odds are just straight odds. It was in favor of the Republicans. That's why so many Republicans were running. And that's why so few Democrats were running. Their chances were good. The Republican who won the primary was most, on odds, was most likely to win. The media had spun that totally into a huge negative for Donald and the hatred for Donald. And just like Brexit, there was this silent majority. People didn't want to speak up because people are being so strident and going after Donald Trump and dehumanizing him. So anyhow, I think those this case of Donald Trump keeping his promises, all right, with the strong economy, with the almost every president gets reelected for a second term. Americans seem to give the president, a second term. They most likely will do that. And so that looks really good for Donald Trump. So just on those odds alone, things look pretty good for him. Okay, one thing that I really like about Donald Trump, as you probably already know if you've listened to any of these podcasts, is that how tough he is. And I love this article from the Fox News says, Trump sues Capital One Deutsche Bank to keep them from complying with subpoenas. This is great. So the Democrats continue to harass Donald Trump. And guess what? They look like they're harassing him. I mean, I just mentioned that the Robert Mueller point was like 57% of Americans thought it was for political purposes. So over half of Americans already think that the Democrats were just going after Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump has filed a lawsuit to block these congressional subpoenas. Oh, they're going after his business records now. And so Donald Trump is blocking this. I've read some legal opinions about this. It looks like he will be able to block this. Okay. Congress cannot, there is a wall of separation between the Article 1 powers of Congress and the Article 2 powers of the executive branch. And so the courts will intervene if they feel like either one is abusing their power. It's funny how Rand Paul always talks about the abuse of power from the presidency or the executive office, the executive branch. But he doesn't talk about overreach of power from Article 1, from Congress. So very ironic, isn't it? So anyhow, this is great. Politico reported that in a joint statement, Maxine Waters and Adam Schiff called the Trump suit meritless. They claimed Trump's suit was a tactical to delay accountabilities. Waters is the chairwoman Maxine Waters. Can you believe it? She is the chairwoman of the Financial Services Committee, and Schiff is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Schiff said at the time that the subpoenas were part of an investigation into allegations of potential foreign influence on the United States political process. I mean, can you believe it? How much did we spend on the Mueller probe? What, $30 million? I mean, basically, Donald Trump's getting a colonoscopy every day by the Democrats. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And they are not going to stop. Americans are completely fed up with this. But, let them go on. Let them go on. So I think, from what I've read, that Donald is going to win. He's going to win in court just like he did for the travel ban. He does have some power. Okay, you got to let the president carry out his duties. Okay, so anyhow, I think that's hilarious. I love that. Also, in the news, Trump is ordering an asylum overhaul, including a new fee for applicants and faster adjudications amid severe border crisis. I love it. So even the New York Times now is acknowledging that there is a humanitarian crisis of illegal immigration has hit a breaking point. I mean, where is the press on this, right? Remember when Donald Trump issued his emergency order and said that there's an emergency and crisis down at the border, and the Democrats all go, oh, no. Well, it looks like there is, okay? And this is how the Democrats always are. They say no, okay, and yet the media doesn't hold them accountable. So it looks like Donald has really won on this border crisis issue, and yet the media went totally crazy on him for exaggerating that. So I think Donald definitely is winning at the border on tough immigration policies. Why not have a fee? I mean, this asylum system has been totally abused. People come into America illegally. They declare asylum. They get a court date. They're released, and you never see them again. Only 2 or 3% of these people come back? So then they're in the country illegally. That's why we have over 20 million illegal aliens in the United States. Visa overstays, these asylum seekers, we've been totally exploited. And so anything to work on immigration. I love it. Kellyanne Conway and Comrade Cortez were tweeting a little Twitter war. And I love how Kellyanne Conway said, hey, call me, if you think there's something we can work out in a bipartisan way. I love that. We need to work deals. And yet the Democrats have been so hashtag resist, they won't deal with Donald with anything. It's very sad. So Joe Biden, with all of his his facelift and everything, so he his opening campaign thing is a huge gaffe. Jeffrey Lord points out in his huge gaffe, because he says, yes, indeed, there were. His opening, one of his lines is, this is such fakeness. It's just ridiculous. Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years. It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open, their crazed faces illuminated by tortures, veins bulging and bearing the fangs of racism, chanting the same anti-Semite bile heard across Europe in the 30s. Okay, he's really pretty excited there, but that is true. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans, and a violent clash ensued, and a brave young woman lost her life. So the courageous group of Americans, you know who he's referring to? Oh, he's referring to Antifa. Oh, yeah, far left Antifa, masked hoodlums. Okay, I mean, the Washington Post called them black-clad Antifa members attack peaceful right-wing demonstrators in Berkeley. Okay, their faces hidden behind black bandanas and hoodies, about 100 anarchists and Antifa anti-fascist members barreled into a protest Sunday afternoon in Berkeley. Okay, I mean, these guys are, oh, good grief. Do you think these guys are a courageous group of Americans? Well, that's a huge gaffe. Wrong, Joe. Sleepy Joe, you're wrong on that one. So, anyhow, and this, I mean, even Jake Tapper the other day said that Donald Trump has never supported white supremacists or neo-Nazis. This is a freaking huge lie and so disturbing. The media will just keep saying that over and over. And when Donald Trump said there's good people on the other side, and there was some people had some confusion over that, although when I heard that, there was no confusion. I knew he was talking about the people tipping over the statues and fighting for the statues, the different people on both sides of the statue issue. He wasn't talking about white supremacists. But anyhow, did any member of the press just ask him? I think Andrew Klavan brought this up. Ask him, "Oh, President, can you clarify? There are good people on what side, on each side. What sides are you speaking about?" No. They heard a little snippet. They took it out of context. They totally distorted it, and then they spread the lie from sea to shining sea. That's what the press has done with that comment. It's so disappointing. It's so, they just totally make up stuff and repeat it over and over. And Don Lemon will just go on and on about what we have such an anti-Semite, racist president. Well, even in the crazy shooter in the synagogue in California, he hated Donald Trump, publicly hated him, thought he was Jew-loving. Okay, so, I mean, anyhow, Donald Trump is not an anti-Semite. It's just ridiculous. His daughter is a member of the Jewish faith, a convert to it. His grandchildren are. His son-in-law, I mean, ridiculous. Oh, speaking of ridiculous, and you wonder why suicide rates are going up, Robert Francis O'Rourke says we only have 10 years left on the earth if we don't address climate change. Does anyone really believe this? I mean, this is fake news on steroids. How often has the left said that the world's imploding and we got to have our socialism, we got to take over government, just let me run your life. This never happens. So bogus. Okay, ending on a good note. Dennis Prager in his fireside chat was talking about how, if you just go after, it's the pursuit of happiness that makes us happy. When we're trying to do good things, all right? But you can't just capture it. Like, we don't have faith, or we don't search for God just to receive blessings. Blessings do come. But when we love God with our whole heart, blessings come. Dennis Prager says, all happy people are grateful. Ungrateful people cannot be happy. We tend to think that being unhappy leads people to complain, but it's truer to say that complaining leads to people becoming unhappy. Because gratitude is the key to happiness, anything that undermines gratitude must undermine happiness. And nothing undermines gratitude as much as expectations. There is an inverse relationship between expectations and gratitude. The more expectations you have, the less gratitude you will have. People can become addicted to fame, money, and attention as deeply as they become addicted to drugs. So it's true. And he talks about earning people's love. And I think this is really good. I think a married couple should always try to be earning the love of the other person. I think you should always be trying to woo your spouse. I think you should always we all need to try to be kind to other people, to try to become, to be friendly. And when we love God with all of our heart, might, mind, and strength, then that second commandment is to love our neighbor as ourselves. I think that's so true, and something that we all can work on. That's great. Hey, this is, thank you so much for listening. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. We talk forever, as you know, but we got to wrap it up. You guys have a great day. Take care.